Hey, what's up, everybody? The V Club here, coming at you with another video. And happy Thanksgiving, by the way. So, let's take a look at what we got going on over here. All right, there's lots of things to talk about, but I wanted to talk about this particular subject today, or subjects today. A couple things I wanted to cover. And, let's just get to it, all right? It's about anything and everything, all right? That's what this show is about. So we could talk about anything, we could talk about everything. We don't have to agree. We could agree to disagree. And based on comments and all that stuff. And what else is there? The thumbs up, thumbs down sort of thing. All I got to say is I see, I see. You know what I mean? And so that's what it's all about. It's just creating thoughts and discussions of the matter. Let's talk about this right here. All right, so Democrats are terrible, right? Terrible spenders, and um, it's obvious. All right, you look at blue states, blue cities, all right, across America, and every one of them, blue states, blue cities, are overspent, blown budgets, and even America has a blown out of proportion budget. All right, badly blown, and in the tunes of trillions of overspent money because of just continued spending, handouts, and all this crap. Right. So let me give you some more examples. All right. I mean, we could look city to cities. Well, we could take a step back to state, and then we could take a look at America at large. So cities, New York, budget shot. Right. Seattle, budget shot. San Francisco, budget shot. LA, budget shot. Oakland, near bankruptcy, right? These are blue cities. Chicago, blown budget, right? And they need to balance the budget. And what they want to do, they want to raise taxes so bad in all these places to have us pay for their overspending, right? Now you take a step back. Blue states, New York, right? Illinois. I mean, we could just keep going, right? California. Again, overspent, when it comes to the budget spending, that they got to do drastic cuts and they want to raise taxes badly. And then you look at America at large. And, due to overspending when it comes to mainly illegals, all right? Like a lot of this stuff has been geared towards spending on illegals, right? You're giving them everything: a house, food, was it house or a place to stay, food, debit cards. I mean, you're giving them everything but a job. I mean, some are finding jobs illegally, all right, and then others they just can't get a job because they don't have the papers to have a job. So they're here. They're incentivized to come here because they see how the government's just giving away, the states are just giving away handouts after handouts. So it's a benefit for them to come over because you're virtually just saying, "Here, come on in," with an open door, open border policy, and all that stuff, right? And then to a lesser extent, all the bullshit spending on bullshit projects, and nothing to account or amount for it. You're sending money overseas to wars that shouldn't even be a necessity or even necessary. And then you do, things like forgiving college loans. It's like, really? You're going to forgive college loans? How about if you can't pay for it, then don't go to college? Sorry, right? Either you find a way or you don't pay to go and don't do it, right? Work, get a job, pay for it, right? And the biggest thing, for me, the turn of everything was when I started to see the mortgage meltdown in the late 2000s, decade there. Yeah, the mortgage meltdown, right? Because the mortgage industry, which is the housing industry, created this sort of demand for housing because they decided to sidestep requirements for like, proof of income and credit check, right? All you got to do is prove that you have credit without showing that it's bad credit or good credit. You just have credit, right? Oh, no, no, you don't have to worry about down payments, right? So if you don't have to worry about that, and you show proof that you actually just work, right? Then they approve you to put in a home. We don't care if it's interest only because you're able to make the monthly payments, right? But, when you're doing interest only on the payments, eventually the principal is going to kick in, right? And then what happens? You got to, eventually pay. So it ends up doubling, tripling, quadrupling your monthly payments instead of interest only. Now you're paying everything to catch back up, right? Because it kicks in after a certain amount of term. So when you have multitudes of people with that type of loan, what happens? Well, a mortgage meltdown happens. So the turn for me was when I started to see that, right? And I was like, damn. And at the time, housing prices at that time was pretty high. I was like, and my mom was encouraging me to buy a home. I was like, hell no, I'm not buying a home. Not at these prices, not right now, right? And then the mortgage meltdown happens, and so these institutions and corporations that were putting out these loans, right, that they shouldn't have, now we're short on cash. And so what happens, right? The mortgage meltdown, the economy, everything was turning bad, right? So car manufacturers lost a lot of money. Banks, lost a lot of money. It was just bad. And so Obama was in office, and it's like, really? So he was considering bailing them all out. And it's like, really? You know what? In any other type of business, in any other type of, way of life, right? If it wasn't for these big companies and big business and all that, we would all, they would just simply fail, right? It's happened for a lifetime of life is that when business fail, that's it, right? You don't get bailed out. So Obama bails out all these things, the banks, the cars companies, and mortgage companies, all that stuff bailed out. And it's like, wow. So you put the government on the hook to bail them all out. It's like, wow. And me personally, I would have just let them all fail. I remember at the time, I was like, let them fail. Just let them fail. Because you got to pay the consequences, right? You can't have it both ways. You can't have it to where, oh yeah, we're making a shitload of money. And then when shit happens, that, you get covered for it. And it's like, come on. If you're irresponsible, like these companies, banks, corporations, that did things that they probably shouldn't have done, questionable stuff, then you fail. It's over. It's done. I would have let them fail if I was president. So Obama bails them out, and then the topping, the icing on the cake was, he really wanted to push hard for Obamacare, and puts us on the hook for Obamacare, right? So again, handouts, right? So that's what Democrats do. That's what made me change my thoughts about how Democrats are, because all they care about is spending and making us pay for it, right? And so, and it goes on and on, right? Go to the Biden administration and current day. I just described everything at the beginning of the video about all the overspending, all the ridiculous crap. You look at California, we got the high-speed rail to nowhere, right? Not one single track's been built, all right? The homeless program, 24 billion plus, right? Spent for the homeless, and yet not a damn thing has changed, right? And they say that the homeless problem's gotten worse. How can your problem get worse if you put a shitload of money into it when there's no accounting for what happened with the money or what you do, all that stuff? So it's obvious that all these things, a lot of these things, are definitely pocket driven, right? You put money in the pockets of whomever is part of the discussion. Hey, and I'll take a piece of that too, right? thanks for the bailout, and I'll take a piece of that too, right? So here we are, right? We know about what happened with Kamala. Spent over nearly 1.5 billion dollars on campaigning in 3 months, and they say, oh, it's such a flawless campaign. Oh man, she did an amazing job in such a short time, but yet when you think about it, that's a lot of money in 3 months, right? And if Trump's been campaigning this whole time and has not spent nearly that much money at all, that shows you the difference between a Democrat spender and a Republican, right? And so this brings me to this, right? Like the continuous irresponsible Democrat spending of Joe Biden, right? As we've already mentioned yet again, right? The handouts, the wars, the what do you call that? The loan forgiveness for college, and now another handout once again. All right, lame duck Biden administration loans 6.6 billion to struggling Tesla rival Rivian, right? And so Rivian, right? Which is another. There's like a couple of rivals. Like there's Rivian, there's Lucid. Rivian is more like truck based. Lucid is like a luxury car based. Lucid looking real nice. Um, but the thing is, though, there's things that they're trying to do, right? The government, right? They've done these sort of EV rebates to try to get people into buying the electric cars, and it's been a money-losing venture. If you ask, outside of Tesla, if you ask all manufacturers, whether it's your domestics like Chevy and Ford, right? And then you ask these EV builders like Rivian, Lucid, it's been a money losing venture, right? It's because people are not interested. Maybe at first, right? Because of all the, Green New Deal push. Oh man, we got to be environmentally safe and friendly. We're polluting the earth and blah blah blah, right? But the problem is, throughout all this, these damn electric cars are so damn expensive. All right, they're expensive. Um, the rebates maybe help a little bit, but outside of that, they're expensive. The range of them things suck. You always got to worry about trying to plug it in somewhere. Like, why would anybody want that, right? And so, what does California do? They're trying to push to force everybody out of power cars in the next 10 years, which is ridiculous. And hopefully that gets pulled back, right? And I'm sure if you ask people, rather than the government trying to force it, the state government that is, trying to force it upon California, if you ask the people, if you ever put it up to a vote, I'm telling you, people would not, accept saying, oh, we're gonna, we want electric cars and no more gas, right? All they've been doing this whole time is stripping us away of everything gas or they're working towards that, and trying to put everything on electricity when we don't even have the grid to be able to supply and maintain this electric push, whether it's in the state, whether it's across the United States. We don't even have the infrastructure across all states to even have electric cars across all states. These are all blue city driven, right? Yeah, I mean, you might have some red states that might have them, but they're probably big, heavily populated, like Texas, right? Florida, they have them. But the big blue states have the majority, right? New York, California, that's it, right? But anyhow, so Biden is giving 6.6 billion to struggling rival Rivian, right? And they've lost. It says here they've lost. This is for construction of a 5 billion electric car factory in Georgia, and then they had to pull out due to financial constraints. Sorry about your luck. If you are struggling, you can't get it done. Well, then what can you say, right? You're a struggling, failing business. Sorry. they've been losing a lot of money, right? Electric cars been losing a lot of money, and so it's like, I mean, you can't help it, right? So, see, Rivian, backed by left-leaning billionaire, until last year was worth as much as 150 billion. Just 3 years ago, now it's only worth 10 billion, right? Because, I mean, what can you say? People are not interested in electric cars. Look at that. Rivian's cost 70,000 or more. Company plans to produce R2, which is a smaller SUV, which has a lower price tag. But still, even at that, it's still pretty costly, right? So that's the problem that we have with it, is the cost and all this stuff. And then he wants to give him a loan. It's quoted as loan, but I'm willing to bet that this is not going to be paid back, right? And all they're doing is feeding money into a failing business. Because until electric cars get better, even Tesla is okay at best to me. Electric cars is just going to be a complete fail, all right? Because they need to be more cost efficient and better range, and that's the two biggest problems with them. So again, another handout. We're already trillions in debt, and you want to give 6.6 billion to Rivian, which they're going to say, oh, that's great, we're going to, it's going to create jobs and all that stuff, right? But then what are you going to do when the money supply runs out and you got to start cutting workers because you can't pay them? All right, so that's the problem we have with them. And speaking of which, since we're talking about that, Kamala has been on a disappearing act for the last few days, or last couple weeks actually. After the election was over, she delayed her concession speech till the next day rather than do it the same day when she was already considered lost in the political election there. And she finally, there was a lot of ridicule, right, because of her spending of 1.5 billion and 1.4 billion dollars, and supposedly 20 million in debt. And then word came out that she hasn't paid her staffers, that the people involved with the campaign haven't been paid, right? And not only that, that they started a GoFundMe page to try to get some money. I think is more for attention, to say, hey, we're not getting paid here, start paying us, right? And so that's just to try to draw her out, I guess. That's what it seemed like to me. And it drew her out because she came back out on Tuesday, because she spent the last couple weeks in Hawaii, which is pretty nice. Plan on going there next summer, by the way. And so while spending the next 2 weeks, last 2 weeks in Hawaii, on you, right? Here she is finally speaking out. So let's see what she has to say here, right? Because people are saying that she doesn't look coherent, maybe drunk. That's pretty funny. So let's take a look at this.
And the outcome of this election obviously is not what we wanted. It is not what we worked so hard for. But I am proud of the race we ran.
Tonight, Kamala Harris not looking very joyous, delivering a pre-Thanksgiving message to her supporters, and critics are calling it a real turkey. Harris is awkwardly advising them to protect their power.
I just have to remind you, don't you ever let anybody take your power from you. You have the same power that you did before November 5th. And you have the same purpose that you did. And you have the same ability to engage and inspire.
Okay.
So the same bullshit stuff that she's been saying, rehearsed bullshit scripted stuff that she's always been saying, even along the campaign. She would say some bullshit like that. Oh, I came from a middle class family, and what else is there? Shit. I'm talking about all these bullshit lines she would say.
Says Harris's aides are now crying foul, blaming everything from headwinds, trans ads, even swing states were part of the problem during a podcast postmortem.
It's really hard for Democrats to win battleground states.
We had discussions with Joe Rogan's team. Ultimately, we just weren't able to find a date. She had tremendous loyalty to President Biden. I hate to repeat this over and over, but it was a very short race with a limited number of days.
Being up against a narrative that we weren't doing anything or we were afraid to have interviews is completely.
But think about that, though, because everything that she's saying is bullshit, right? Like, afraid to do interviews, obviously, because she really didn't do one until, towards the end. And you're telling me you can't find a time and arrangement to meet with Joe Rogan, right? And you're trying to tell Joe Rogan to fly out to them, while meanwhile you're paying all these different celebrities, right? The Oprahs, the Beyoncés, that whatever that girl podcast, Al Sharpton, all this money, and you're telling me that you couldn't go meet Joe Rogan, right? So get out of here with that shit. She's full of shit too.
Was it really all that? Or perhaps was it her radical far-left policies?
That's exactly
We've got to critically re-examine ICE. There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking, that we need to have Medicare for all. I support a mandatory buyback program. Zero emission vehicles, only, 100%.
Every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access to the medical care.
I mean, it could have been the few interviews that she actually did.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind.
Do you sympathise with any voters who do feel offended by or insulted by the garbage comments?
I am running for president of the United States.
You call Donald Trump, he's misguided. You say now
he's unstable. He is unstable, Brett.
He's not well. You say he's mentally not stable.
He's not stable.
Let me ask you this. You told many interviewers that Joe Biden was on his game, that ran around circles on his staff. When did you first notice that President Biden's mental faculties appeared diminished?
Joe Biden.
Maybe it was all of those terrible campaign stunts that her aides actually put her up to.
How's everybody doing?
Aren't you kind of more of a wine person?
When are you having that, Vice President?
It's an Oberon, and it's made right here in Kalamazoo, which many are calling Kamala Zoo.
Cheers.
There you go.
Possibly it was the millions wasted on out-of-touch celebrity appearances and endorsements. But wasn't the real reason the fact that Biden and Harris inflation made putting food on the table unaffordable for most Americans, and an administration that treated illegal migrants in this country, and criminals, by the way, better than its own citizens, which led to this.
Donald Trump put up the best Republican performance for a Republican nominee for president in at least 20 years, if not the entire 21st century. Trump gained ground in 49 states and the District of Columbia. When was the last time a party gained in so many different places? You have to go all the way back to 1992. Trump's was the best GOP showing among 18 to 29-year-olds in 20 years. How about among black voters? It was the best performance for a Republican candidate for president in 48 years.
Because people got tired of the bullshit lies, the pandering, the, supporting the illegals. I mean, just all the bullshit that was coming out of the Democrats. People were over it. And that's what it shows here.
Let's welcome to the show from House Oversight and Accountability, Congressman Andy Biggs. Great to have you tonight with us, Congressman. And I want to get your take on this barrage of sound bites. All these people blaming it on all these things that actually weren't the real thing, because at the end of the day, when it came...
And they also blame the hurricane that impeded Kamala's progress. And it's like, well, you have to adjust. You have to pivot. You still have to move forward. You can't just blame that the hurricane slowed things down. I mean, yeah, it is an obstacle, but you can't say that did anything to the campaign. I mean, look how she reacted. She tried to act like she was trying to be in on operations for rescues and stuff. And even the Florida governor, DeSantis, called her out saying, you've never called one time ever in your vice presidency, and now you're trying to call me now and act like you're involved with something when you've never been ever involved ever, So called her out on that. I mean, it's just bullshit, all this dog and pony show that she was doing this whole time and overspending obviously shows that there's no way she could ever be president. Because think about it, man, if she did that in 3 months, how much can she overspend? That's how the Democrats are, though.
Came down to it, it was about her policy. It was about how progressive she was, and it was under Joe Biden, and ultimately the inflation problem that they never acknowledged when they were in office.
Jackie, you're 100% right. They were so out of touch, it's hard to even fathom that she got as many votes as she did. They never acknowledged the inflation and the pressure on the average American citizen. They never acknowledged that the border was a crisis. She was the border czar. They never acknowledged the things that Donald Trump did that he was so successful in. That's why they lost. They didn't lose because they ran all these crazy beer drinking things that she doesn't participate in. She was inauthentic, Jackie.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
It's amazing to me that in a situation where Biden was exposed during that debate in June, there was no primary. She literally was handed the nomination.
Yep.
She was handed his treasure chest of...
That's the reason why they handed it to her, because you can't hand over all the campaign donations and stuff to anybody else except for the vice president, nominee at that time. If they were to pick someone else, then all that money would have been gone, lost, unusable, basically. So it was kind of like they had to force her hand, either stick with Biden or go with Kamala. There really wasn't any other choice without losing all that campaign donations.
Of donations and campaign fundraising as well. And yet they still managed to lose, Congressman. And when they talk about the money, she's been exposed for some of that waste. Listen to this.
That you knocked on doors, you called friends, you called in favors. You said, hey, I showed up at your softball game. Now I need you to show up at the campaign office. We raised an historic $1.4 billion, almost $1.5 billion from grassroots supporters alone. The most in presidential campaign history.
So a couple of things there. First of all, on social media, they were accusing her of being drunk. I don't know. I'm just saying. But having said that, you listen to her. She acknowledges how much money they had, and yet we've seen what they wasted and squandered it on. I mean, she squandered her opportunity as the first female black vice president. So I'm not surprised that she squandered this money. But ultimately, this woman wanted to be leader of the free world.
She's a DEI, straight up.
Yeah, and she is typical of Washington, D.C. politics in the sense that you can have all the money in the world, but you're going to overspend. And that's exactly what she did, Jackie.
But all Democrats
She overspent $1.4 billion that they're in the hole, and they're having to try to raise money to back it up. And that's part of the reason that she had no business being running for office, is because she couldn't manage the campaign. She wasn't the candidate that was there. She had surrounded herself with people that couldn't get the job done, and they overspent.
Yeah.
Holy smokes. They spent $1.4 billion plus.
complete mismanagement. And unfortunately for her, that video takes really no accountability for anything that happened.
Nope.
I wouldn't have put that out there if I was a staffer to her. I don't really think she's going to have a future in politics.
Nope, and that's going to parlay me over to
John
this.
Morgan is the founder of Morgan & Morgan and a former major Democratic donor. John, I was thrilled to have you tonight.
He's going to tell it all.
And I wanted you to react to this. This was reporting out of Politico about what Kamala Harris was doing in Hawaii. Privately, the vice president has been instructing advisors and allies to keep her options open, whether for a possible 2028 presidential run or even to run as governor in the state of California in 2 years, as Harris has repeated in phone calls, I am staying in the fight.
Oh, no.
Your reaction to that?
Well, my reaction is, she thinks she's Obama. She goes to Hawaii because Obama goes to Hawaii. She started talking like Obama, imitating Obama. She is not Barack Obama. She has no talent. She can never run for president again.
Nope.
She ran once and got 0 delegates. She got 8% of California. I begged them not to put her up. She was going to be tethered to Biden no matter what. That was a zero-sum game for her.
Yep.
But she thought that all these votes were for her. They were not. The votes that she got were people voting against Trump, and the votes that Trump got were the people voting for Trump.
It's an interesting perspective.
The Harris campaign should have done, instead of avoiding Joe Rogan and podcasts, it turns out that Barron Trump, who looks like a runway model, was telling his father, you need to go on podcasts. You need to go on Joe Rogan. He was 3 hours late to a rally because he was doing Joe Rogan because that was so important. So Barron Trump
Very interesting.
is a lot smarter than everybody in the Harris. They said they didn't go on Joe Rogan, the progressives around her. You heard what Carmel said. The progressives didn't want to go on Joe Rogan. Look, if I'm running, I'm going on Joe Rogan. I'm living on Fox. That's how you change minds. They played hide the ball. They lost badly. She should go away and never, ever come back. She spent almost $2 billion. They're raising money this week to pay off the debt.
Staffers.
If you can't run your campaign, you damn sure can't run the country.
I mean, he explained it all right
John,
there.
that is the most honest assessment, and I think the most accurate one I've heard from a Democrat so far. And I'm curious for you, as you move forward as a party, who's the future of your party?
They got no one.
Well, my future, look, I'm a Bill Clinton Democrat. And each year that's gone by, I've been pushed further and further and further out. The squad, defund the police, woke, it pushes people like me. I am not a democratic socialist. I was a Democrat with a capital C, capitalist.
Interesting.
I now am a registered independent because I cannot abide.
And that's the thing. It's so progressive, liberal, progressive, socialist that it's pushing these classic Democrats towards liberal, right? Third party. Or, I'm sorry. It's just crazy.
That business.
The independent, the independent party.
I love Joe Biden. I think he did a great job. If you look at the record, I know a lot of you all disagree, but objectively, I think history's going to be good to him. But Joe Biden is the end of my line with Democrats because of the Harrises of this world and the progressives pushing her to not go on Joe Rogan. That's where she should have been. Just where Barron Trump told his dad to go and all the other podcasts. So that's where I am today. I'm more for people than party. In Florida, I ran 2 amendments. I legalized medical marijuana and I raised the minimum wage. Had to get 60% of the vote. We did. You know why? Most of us agree on most things when you take the DNR down. So I would say to the squad and the defund the police crowd, mission accomplished. I'm out.
All right, so that's pretty telling about what happened there, and it explains it all, right? I mean, how can Kamala ever run again, because if she's shown how she could just overspend and just throw away all that money on bullshit and nonsense and can't even win, and not only that she's lost, once because she couldn't get a single vote in the primary once. That's why she bailed out the first time. She got picked up as the DEI vice president. She ran again because she got propped up too. Now backed with a shit ton of money and still lost. Really shows you that she cannot run for president ever again, nor can she run a state like California because it's already bad. Because Gavin Newsom's just as bad. And for her to be in California to do the same thing, to continue on, oh man, it's going to be so bad. But anyhow, I just wanted to share this with you guys, that continued lame duck stuff that Biden's doing, and then the Kamala reappearance popping back up after a couple weeks from her defeat. So let me know what you think. Can't wait till these guys are gone, right? Kamala, Biden, they need to go. And we need to move forward and start really cutting down everything that these idiots put up. And get back to just being America once again, because we've gone down this progressive route. It's terrible. It doesn't work. We're living in terrible times, and we need a fix. All right, so we'll see what the fix comes. But anyhow, I just want to share this with you guys. Happy Thanksgiving. Share me your thoughts. Comment down below. Subscribe, hit the bell icon, and I'll see you next one.